Recently, long-term Platteville residents had reached their breaking point in some of the behavior they had seen repeatedly taking place outside of their homes. With the growing number of students residing in neighborhoods that were once single-family homes, permanent residents are concerned that certain behaviors are going unpunished and are seen as acceptable. In order to acknowledge that certain behaviors will not be tolerated, many students who reside off campus received flyers, also known as the No Warning List. This list caused several students in the community to become defensive and felt they were being punished by the whole community due to the bad behavior of a select few. To discuss the real purpose of the flyer and the concerns of the residents, I am joined with Mike Delecky, president of the Common Council and sociology professor here on campus, as well as Doug McKinley, Platteville chief of police, who are both proud alumni here at UWP. Welcome. How are you guys doing today?
Very good.
Just fine.
Great. Recently, many students were handed a no warning list out to their residents. Why don't you explain a little bit about that no warning list?
Sure. We had a meeting on April 11th held at the Olsvik Center in which we tried to make it as much common knowledge as we could that a number of issues that we commonly refer to as quality of life issues were going to experience stricter enforcement. Specifically, we touched on issues like open intoxicants, loud noise or disorderly conduct, parties or loud voices even, criminal damage to property, trespassing, underage alcohol violations, something as mundane as public urination, and rules related to fire pits and what would constitute a recreational fire.
And now that list of behaviors was handed out to many residents on specific streets or just?
We kind of targeted areas where we've seen the most violations of this nature. Not coincidentally, a lot of those are areas that are adjacent to the campus and have a lot of rental properties in them. We wanted to put people on notice that we would be enforcing, we would be seeing stricter enforcement of these type of infractions, just so that folks would, again, be on notice and hopefully change their behavior if need be.
So if you see this behavior, it's an automatic ticket?
There's nothing that's automatic, but the expectation that they might get a warning is probably not going to be realized.
And now, how do the residents feel about this no warning list going out? Some of the local residents.
Which local residents?
Permanent residents within the community.
Well, they are part of the concern here in that they own properties in those neighborhoods and they live there year-round, and they have a reasonable expectation that they should be able to live at some level of peace and quiet, and to expect that their properties aren't damaged, that students aren't going through their backyards, or whomever it is. We don't necessarily know they're students, but that's probably not a bad guess. That they have an expectation that when they go to bed at night that they're not awakened at 2 or 3 in the morning by people who have maybe had a little bit too much fun that evening. And we're trying to find a balance here between not being too heavy-handed in terms of dealing with problems, but also recognizing that there's a basic principle here, and that principle is that your right to swing your fist stops at another person's nose. And when people out there begin to impose their lifestyles on other people, that's the point at which we need to correct that situation.
Now, have you seen any results since this list has gone out in a change of behavior?
I think it's probably premature to say results, but we have seen an increase in the number of citations that we've issued. And like Mike touched on, this is all about making Platteville more livable, not just for the permanent residents, as you put it, but everybody. I mean, the students, the long-term residents, everybody. At the meeting that we had on the 11th, you saw people, long-term residents, students, everybody, I mean, across the spectrum, weighed in on the fact that maybe more enforcement was needed. I mean, so that was a pretty clear message that was sent and received at that meeting.
Now, there's obviously a lot of college campuses and college communities that deal with all this similar behavior. But do you think it's just more overwhelming to us because the growing size of the school and population versus the community and the police services we have?
I'd say what impacts it more is that I think we're seeing more single-family homes become rentals, and the nature of a lot of our neighborhoods is changing probably a little bit more rapidly than some folks had either desired or expected. So that maybe that in that regard we're seeing a little bit more impact from it, but I don't think we're experiencing anything that any other university town hasn't seen and dealt with already.
And especially with Platteville starting out so small, as both of you know, being alumni, and now it is growing and growing, and the rate of diversity is changing. How do you feel like, are you guys planning to deal with the new incoming influx of students?
With the Tri-State Initiative and whatnot?
Yes.
I think one way that we can hopefully make a good impact on that is let the expectations be very clear from the outset, in that folks will know what will be tolerated, what won't be tolerated, and what their neighbors are going to feel is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. We want to make those standards very clear and have everybody operating from the same sheet of music.
Exactly. How do you think the communities, I know they're already, a little upset with the amount of students and some of their behavior out in the community. How do you think the community is going to react to even more students?
Well, that's part of the challenge that we face, is how to deal with this. The university is going to grow. How we accept those students and provide for them is going to be important, not only for those students but also for everyone else in town. I think it's also important that we recognize one thing here. There tends to be this sense that this is about the students, as if
Right.
they're all the same. And the reality is that most of the problems come from a relatively small proportion of the students.
Mm-hmm.
We had students at that meeting that said, we want better enforcement of this. We can't sleep at night. We have this problem. So this is not just permanent residents who are having issues with this. This is a number of students as well, quite a few of them, in fact. And so what we're really doing here is recognizing that there are certain behaviors that we would like to curtail, not people. Because frankly, if a permanent resident engages in these things, they're going to get a ticket just like anyone else would. It's the behaviors that are the key. And as long as you avoid